1. So we'll call to order the Board of Appeals meeting scheduled for November 6, 2023 at 7 p.m. And this is the application of Jacob Malil. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Pretty close, Malio.
Malil.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Located at 3 Elm Lawn Street in Milton.
Lawn Street, yeah.
Yeah, and the application here is dated September 11th, 2023. And this application is seeking a special permit to construct an addition to the right side of their existing residence. The property is located in a residency zoning district. And the addition is proposed, at least part of the addition is proposed to be 12 feet 1 from the front yard setback, when normally 20 feet are required under the zoning bylaw. My name is John Leonard. I'm chairman of the Board of Appeals, and with me tonight, Board of Appeals member Kathleen O'Donnell and Theodore Ted Daber. So let me just briefly outline what we have in the application. We have the application itself. It's dated September 11th, 2023. And we also have the denial letter from the Milton Building Commissioner. And the building commissioner writes that you're seeking an addition to the front of the property to be built at 12 feet 1 inch on the front yard setback of the property, when the bylaw requires 20 feet. The commissioner notes that he denies the application, as otherwise he wouldn't be here tonight. But it's the relief sought is under section 4 of the bylaw, which allows a special permit in the event that the Board of Appeals finds that this particular proposed change will not be more detrimental to the neighborhood than what exists. And the reason for that is that this property is a pre-existing non-conforming use. And so as a result of that, the relief that the applicant is seeking is a special permit and not a variance, which comes at a more difficult standard. So in addition to the inspector's letter, which is dated 8/22/2023, we have a plot plan of the subject property by Hoyt Land Surveying of Weymouth, Massachusetts. It's dated 8/25/23, and it shows the subject property, its location on the corner of Elm Lawn Street and Canton Avenue, and it shows the existing lots that surround the surrounds the subject property. And we have some drawings of the interior of the subject property and the exterior of the property. All of these drawings have been posted on the Board of Appeals website. And we've received 3 or 4 letters. They are relatively short. I will paraphrase them rather than read them verbatim. But the first letter we have is to the Board of Appeals. It's dated September 10th, 2023. It's from Nicholas, I'm going to say Tanjny, and Kathleen White of 349 Canton Avenue in Milton. They express his support for the application. They have reviewed all of the plans and they have no objections. They reside at 349 Canton Avenue, and they're abutters to the subject property. They had to complete a similar variance process. No, this is a special permit process and not a variance process. When they renovated their house more than a decade ago, they believe that the applicant's project will enhance the neighborhood, and they're happy that the applicants will be able to make their house meet the needs of their family and remaining in the neighborhood. So we thank Mr. Tanjni and Ms. White. We have another letter of support dated September 19th, 2023. And this is from Molly Gallagher Lewis at 7 Elm Lawn Street. She's writing to express her support for the expansion as being proposed. They've reviewed the plot plan and she has no objections, despite being a potential abutter to the subject property. So we thank Ms. Lewis for her letter of support. And the last letter of support that we have is September 4th, 2023. It's from Andy Cambria, 367 Canton Avenue. And Mr. Cambria writes to the board expressing his support for the expansion. And he has reviewed the plot plan likewise, and he has no objections, despite being a potential abutter to the subject property. So we'll have all of those documents as evidence at the hearing, and as part of, we'll incorporate them in the decision, which we hope to be able to reach tonight. So I think, unless any board member has something to add to Mr. Maliel, welcome to the Board of Appeals, and we're delighted to hear from you.
Great. Thank you to the board. And if it's okay, my wife and I just wanted to read a quick statement for the record.
No, absolutely.
Happy to answer any questions you have after that.
That's great. We're delighted. Great.
Take it. Good evening. Well, we'll be quick. We know you got a full agenda here tonight. But good evening again. My name is Jake Maliel, and I'm joined by my wife, Katie.
I'm a 5th grade teacher in the Milton Public Schools at Glover Elementary School.
Okay.
And we live it. Oh, yes, it is. I saw lots of trick-or-treaters just the other day. I love seeing my students come and get candy. So we live at 3 Elm Lawn Street, and we are seeking that special permit to build a small expansion to the house. We bought our house around 10 years ago, and when we first bought it, we thought about how great the location is. My younger daughters and I walk to Glover in the morning. My older daughter walks to Pierce. We go to the library, walk to the library all the time to get books. We're very frequent flyers there. And it's such a family-friendly neighborhood. We have such great relationships with all of our neighbors and are really glad to be here.
So Katie just kind of briefly outlined what we loved about the house, the location, and for the last many years, we've really been able to benefit from that. There were probably 2 things in particular that we didn't know about the house when we bought, or really didn't appreciate as much as we do today. One is really, as Katie said, how great our neighbors are. An example of this, you read some of the letters that our neighbors were very happy to join in support of this initiative. We're joined on the call tonight, I'm told, by Nick Tangy and his wife Kathy. They're 2 long-term Milton residents, and we're proud to call them neighbors. Their house is immediately adjacent to ours, like a true definition of an abutter. I can see their house from my window. Nick, Kathy, their daughters, they've all been great neighbors to us for the last, up to 10 years. The second thing we just didn't appreciate 10 years ago was really how the property's unusual lot line would factor into the future growth.
Yeah.
We just did think about it. We were, a younger family. We had 2 babies in tow, and we just, as Katie said, wanted to set up shop and, do all that. Our 3rd daughter wasn't even on our radar at the time, to be honest with you. Fast forward today, we've got 3 girls, they're growing. My parents have actually relocated to Milton from New Jersey when they retired. My brother and his young family moved to Milton this summer from Oklahoma. And this presents many opportunities for us as a family to gather with our family and friends at our house. Unfortunately, just the sizing and sort of the layout of the house isn't quite conducive to this. And so that's why we're here today. We are just simply looking to build or get a special permit to build a, a one-story single room. It's a bonus room. It's not a bedroom. Just to, allow people a little more space and the ability to kind of gather together as a family and, celebrate milestones and things of that nature. And as John, you mentioned at the beginning, the house itself was I don't know what the official term is, non-conforming with its current 12-foot setback. And as you see on the plans that we provided, all we're doing is simply just matching that exact, we're not sort of doing anything beyond what's already, the existing structure sort of provides for. So I guess we can stop there, and happy to answer any questions that you all have.
Sure, let me just ask you a fairly basic question, and that is to the addition is on the right-hand side of your residence. Is that true?
That's right. Yep, on the corner of Elm Lawn and Canton.
And if you extend out to that right, what is present there? Is there any other structure or?
No, it's ironically, it's actually just land. I wish that was in the back of the house as a more legitimate backyard. We don't, as you can see from the plan, that side of the house doesn't get utilized because Canton Ave is the busier side of the house. So the kids don't play over there. People don't go over there. It's kind of underutilized land, to be honest with you.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate your thoughts. Let me see if you have nothing further to add. Let's see if the board members have any questions of you. Ms. O'Donnell, do you have any questions of the applicants?
I was just wondering, is 367 Canton the house across the street from you?
So it's on the, if you're seeing the plot plan, I don't know if you have that in front of you.
Yep.
It would be the house just south of us across Elm Lawn Street, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah.
Their front faces Canton Ave, but we
Right.
look at their house basically from our house. Yep.
Yeah. Okay, I just couldn't, I could see where the other two were from the
Yeah.
plot plan, but they didn't have a name for this. I'm
Right.
just curious about that.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, obviously the people next to you on Elm Street on the other side won't see the addition at all because it's on the other side of your house.
Yeah.
So that it's nice to know that the two people who actually will see something have sent in letters of support.
Right.
And I was just curious, I went by and there's trees. Are those the trees that are on Canton Ave? Are those coming down, or can you do this extension without taking out?
Yeah, our hope is to preserve the tree. We only have that one, there's really one tree that's kind of on the Canton Ave kind of line.
Yeah.
This bumps out, it doesn't quite go far enough to remove the tree. So our hope is to preserve the tree. That would be the goal. Sometimes when you get into these projects, the roots and things like I don't know enough about that, but the tree isn't part of where the expansion would go.
Yeah, I mean, I think that would, for protection of, for you too as well. The tree provides some visual protection that you wouldn't otherwise have. And it seems like that would be a good thing to maintain.
Yeah, we agree.
And we have two bushes right outside the windows that face Canton that our contractor said he could maybe move, or if we couldn't, then we would get new ones for.
Yeah. Yeah, obviously the bushes don't provide that much screening, but the tree certainly does.
Yeah, we'd love to keep the tree. There's no, that would be our goal. So, yeah.
Those are the only questions I had. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Kathleen. Mr. David, do you have any questions of the applicants?
I guess the only one I have, the plans and drawings are very helpful. And the portion of the drawings showing the addition is shaded. Is the addition going to be basically the same architectural style and color as the rest of the house?
Yeah, absolutely. It's intended to fully match what's already here, not look different or in any way. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's my only question, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Ted. Appreciate very much. If you have nothing else to add, let's see if there's any member of the public present who wishes to speak in support of your application. You did mention that Nick Tagney and Kathleen White not only sent in a letter, but they're present tonight. Do Mr. Tagney and Miss White, do you want to be heard on this application in addition to the letter you sent in?
Yes, I do have their hand up.
Great.
Yeah, thank you. Can you hear us?
We can hear you.
Great, thanks. So I'm Nick Tagney and my wife Kathy is here with me. I'm a town meeting member in Precinct 3 and basically a lifelong resident of Milton. We are the direct abutters, the closest direct abutters to Jake and Katie's project. We are highly in favor of the project. You read the letter and summarized it nicely. We just wanted to get on and provide that support here in person as well. So thanks for listening. And we think it's a great project. It's beautiful and it'd be a great addition to the neighborhood.
Great. Thanks for appearing. That's wonderful support. Let me ask, is there anybody else present this evening who wishes to speak in support of this application?
I don't have any other hands up.
Okay. Is there anybody present this evening who either have questions regarding the application or wish to speak in opposition to this application for special permit?
Nope, no hands up.
Okay, then unless the applicants have something further to add, and I think they don't, because it's usually good strategy to quit. Then what we'll do, we'll close the evidence in this particular hearing and hear from my fellow board members. So, Ms. O'Donnell, do you want to be heard first?
I am in support of this application. I note that the house, the existing house is only 12 some odd feet from the 12 feet and 1 inch from the front yard. So this addition is in keeping with the existing structure, doesn't extend any farther in the back than the existing house, 15.6 feet. As the applicant has pointed out, it is an odd shaped lot. There's really nowhere else you could do anything, I think, on this particular spot. And so I'm sensitive to the fact that it's also just a 1-story addition. So the massing isn't a situation with something much larger than should be on that site. So I'm in favor of the application.
Great, thanks, Kathleen. Mr. Deva, please.
Yes, I agree with everything that Kathleen said. Very well presented by both of you, and it's great that you love Milton enough and that you love teaching there, and your kids love the schools, obviously, that you want to stay and you want to, have the house increased in size, and it sounds like it'll be a wonderful addition to the house, and will suit your needs so that you can, your family can grow and enjoy that space. So I'm totally in favor of it as well. And it will not, to get a little legalistic, it is not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than what is already there. So.
Great, thanks, Ted. Appreciate it very much. Well, I agree with my colleagues. I think the application is very well presented. I think the application has merit. It's a rather modest addition, in my view, for a family with 3 grown children. And I don't know how else you could increase the utility of the house. It's terrific to see all of the neighbors supporting this particular application. I do think the applicant's proposal not only will not substantially increase any detrimental or injurious effect on the use or the neighborhood, but I think it's really just the opposite. This particular application will substantially benefit not only the applicants, but will benefit the neighbors and will be substantially favorable to the neighborhood and to the abutters. So I think this application has merit, and I intend to vote in favor of it. So unless you have something further to add, are there any conditions that any of my fellow board members want to discuss or attach to the application? Or are we all comfortable with it as it is?
I think if we just said in the decision that the extension would be, in conformity with the existing dwelling in terms of its appearance, I think that's about the only thing that I would consider saying.
How about you, Ted?
I agree with that.
Okay, well, I agree with it as well, and that's kind of a standard series of conditions we put in this type of application. So all those in favor of granting to the applicants a special permit pursuant to section 4 of the bylaw, please say aye.
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 Well, congratulations to you folks. Short and sweet, but well merited and well done. We will we prepare written decisions here and not checklists. And we'll try to do that with some degree of dispatch. Let me ask you a question that perhaps I should have in the hearing, but that's all right. Do you intend to try to put this addition on before the winter starts to howl, or are you going to do this in the spring?
I think at this point, most likely early spring.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that you don't have a need that it be turned around with extraordinary speed. You don't have a contractor in the field ready to come in.
No, I think we're most likely just gonna, early spring would be fine.
Okay, that's great. We'll try to knock this out as quickly as we can. I would tell you that once this application is the decision is signed, we will file it with the clerk's office, and there is a period of time before it's finalized, even though nobody's opposed this application. Once the waiting period has expired, the statutory waiting period has expired, then the clerk's office, the town clerk, will send you a copy, a certified copy of the decision. And it's important that you know that you have to record that decision with the Registry of Deeds in a timely manner. And there's a small fee for that. I don't know whether it's $50 or $75, something. But don't forget to record the special permit that we're granting. And then basically you have a year, it's my present memory that you have a year to begin construction. And then as long as you proceed in a reasonably diligent fashion, you'll have your new addition in the spring and have peace and happiness with your family. And I'm glad to hear also that your parents are here. I think that's a wonderful thing. I do get to New Jersey with some frequency, and I like Milton. How's that? I'm sure you and your kids will enjoy having them around. So congratulations on your special permit, and we look forward to taking a peek at your house and seeing how it's doing.
Anytime, come on over. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Malcolm.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Good night.
Good night.
See you at the library.
All righty. Anyone want to take a crack at this one?
I mean, I'll do it if, yeah.
Yeah. Well, somebody's got to knock it. I'll do it. I don't care. Whoever.
Yeah, I can do it. I can do short ones easier than long ones, because then my typing is lousy and I'm not a good typist myself, so.
No, that's
And I don't have it. Yeah, I don't have some. So this one should be fine for me.
okay. That's
okay.
good. No, that's good. I appreciate Ted and the Now I've even forgot to, I was gonna say, we have multiple, section section for special permits, and it's pretty basic, and we'll have Julia crank one out and get it to you, and
Okay,
it'll make the time easier and more efficient for you.
well,
I
that,
can look for some if you want to see whether I've done any.
okay,
That's
that would be appreciated. Thank you.
great. Alrighty, so I have 7:27 is, I see Mrs. McGettrick's flag waving there. We'll admit Mrs. McGettrick and Mr. Falcone. Hi, Marion, how are you?
Good evening. How are you?
Marion,
Hello.
Hey there.
Hi.
Hi.
There is also an engineer whose name is Greg Morris. He should be admitted as a panelist. He's going to be sharing screens.
Oh, great.
Okay, I'll add him.
You
Hopefully
must be
he's here.
very, very good, Marion, because when I was reading the application, I did see a lot of screens jumping up and down on this one, and
Yeah.
that'll be great.
All right,
So,
looks like
we have everyone here for this one.
Mhm.
Okay. You all set, Mrs. McGettrick?
I'm all set. Thank you.
Okay, great. Our second hearing this evening is the application of Falcone Properties LLC by their attorney, Marion McGettrick of Milton, Massachusetts. It involves a property at 7-9 Pleasant Street and 672 Randolph Avenue in Milton. And the applicant is seeking a use variance pursuant to the bylaw to allow a commercial parking area to the rear portion of a residential lot abutting the subject property. The property is located in a resident zoning district, and the applicant is also requesting a modification of a variance that this board heard on March 7th, 2019. And I think the whole purpose of this application is to provide a space of a net gain of 15 parking spaces, and 2 parking spaces apparently that are out there already and will be eliminated as part of this, all on plans with the board. Mrs. McGettrick is filed with the board a series of documents. I'm just going to briefly outline them. That's certainly the application and the denial letter from the building inspector. And as usual, Mrs. McGettrick has provided a thorough explanation of the subject issues and the applicable law in a letter to the board that's dated September 11th, 2023. And all of these materials have been available on the town website for weeks. We have the denial letter by the building commissioner dated 9/7/2023. We have a whole series of plans and drawings, and which I am not going to review. They're all present on the website and available. Mrs. McGettrick has provided us with a deed to a property that's going to be relevant to the application. It's a deed from Jeremiah Fowler and Sarah Fowler to Falcone Properties LLC, and it's dated November 16th, 2021. We have, in addition,
But maybe it's at the time I should speak up to say that the person who notarized the deed from the Fowlers was me. I represented the Fowlers when they purchased 672 Randolph Ave, and I represented them when they sold 672 Randolph Ave. I don't think that provides a conflict of interest at this point, but I am making that disclosure that I did represent these folks when they lived next door.
Fine, I don't think it requires I think it requires a disclosure, but not a withdrawal. And I apologize for missing your name.
There's lots of Kathleen O'Donnells. You might have thought it was somebody else, but it was
No,
me.
I would get to the queue, but your signature is a little mysterious, but I did not note that. And but you have such an active practice, Kathleen. Nothing surprises me. Thank you very much for pointing that out. Probably make you more efficient if you have to write or edit any decision we may enter in this case. We have more series of plans of the Milton official online map. We have a property record card. I'm not sure, Mrs. McGettrick, whether that came from you or I pulled that up myself. We have a copy of the decision of the board granting relief to the Falcones dated November 7th, 2018. It runs in multiple pages. And I think that fairly well summarizes it. Mrs. McGettrick, I just should say the panel here is the same panel as the last application. And that consists of me as chairman, John Leonard, Kathleen O'Donnell, and Attorney Ted Daber. And of course, it's Attorney Kathleen O'Donnell as well. So, Mrs. McGettrick, the floor is yours. We look forward to hearing from you.
Oh, thank you very much. And yes, I'm Mary McKettrick. I represent the applicant. And I'm here with Robert Falcone, who representing Falcone Properties, LLC, and Greg Morse from Morse Engineering Company. I'd like to provide an introduction and an update to the description you already provided of what we have filed. This is an application for a use variance. It is only to create additional parking in the rear part of 672 Randolph Avenue, which is in a Residence C district. So this requires a variance because commercial parking in a residential area is not allowed. The enlarged parking area will only be for the use of tenants in the Bent building and their customers and guests. I want to emphasize, because I know we've had a letter about this and we've been talking to neighbors, there are no plans to expand commercial use at either of these addresses or to change the approved uses in the old Bent's building. That approval of the mixed use only occurred in 2019. The building's fully constructed and tenanted and very successful. All of the commercial users and the tenants in the apartments and the cafe and the catering business, they all love the premises. The only purpose of this application is to provide better parking than currently exists. At the time we applied in 2019 and you approved the mixed use, Falcone Properties only owned 79 Pleasant Street. The Fowlers owned the property next door. Several years later, they did sell to the Falcones, and so they now own both properties. And they did a little bit of updating to the house, but they then immediately sought residential tenants. They have a family living there who have children who are very happy living there. We hope they'll be there for a long time, but if they're not there, then other residential tenants will be sought for the property. So Falcones intend to continue using the house as a house, and they want to continue the house in its current very attractive historic appearance. This house is actually part of the way the Bent's building looks. It's all part of that corner. And it just is, it's a landmark property. It may not be on the National Historic Register like Bent's, but the Falcone family feels that this house should be preserved. So that's part of the reason for this application. The second part is that this is a 23,000 square foot lot, extends way up into the back. It's a rather odd shape, just like the Bents and the 7 and 9 Pleasant Street lot. These are both, they're not really rectangular. They just have numerous sides. And in this case, it's difficult to use the rear of this lot for anything. It would be difficult to subdivide and build a house, for example, in the rear. The lot's large enough. This is a C zone. Lot sizes are 7,500 square foot minimum. So theoretically, there's enough area here to subdivide and build more. But the land slopes up sharply. It's full of ledge. It's very rocky in the back. And then it still slopes even in the back where we're talking about, creating this parking lot, but not as sharply. And so it's not an ideal subdivision property. Falcone's looked at whether they could, buy this lot and perhaps create a lot in the back for parking and come back and try to get relief for that lot. But their purpose here is to keep the front house as it is and to maintain control over the house. So they don't really want to subdivide and sell off pieces of this property. They do see, however, that there's land in back there that could be made available for parking if the Board of Appeals feels it's appropriate to grant this use variance. It's, a commercial parking lot is not a building. And I'll give you some of the detailed changes that we've made to this design to address some concerns. But it will be a parking lot. It will actually only, in the current design, only increase the net number of spaces by 10. Or possibly 13 if you count short-term drop-off and delivery spaces along the Bents building. So what we've done is met with the planning board, heard from the planning board and heard from neighbors. After that meeting, we went back to the engineers and we had them do some redesign of the layout of the parking lot and to change some features. So instead of having this parking lot go all the way over to within 20 feet of each of the side and lower right-hand edges of this, we brought the dimensions of the parking lot back. We took 5 spaces out of the parking lot and set the parking lot in the rear back by 45 feet. And it's also set back with a gradually reducing setback, starting at 45 feet, back to the right lower corner where it is still 20 feet. That's what the whole setback was in the original proposal. So that was number one change to meet concerns from the 2 abutters who have property that starts at Randolph Ave and goes up towards the rear and abuts this property at the rear. Second concern or request was that fencing be put around the parking lot that matched the fencing in the Bents lot. That change has been made in this plan. So there's a 7-foot wood fence, same design as the fence in the Bents parking lot. Third request was that there be no lights on posts and that instead the same lighting system as is used in the Bents parking lot be installed here, which is lights on the inside of the parking lot posts that point into the parking lot. They don't shine up over the fence, they shine back into the lot. We provided a few days ago, I was able to submit a photometric plan for this new lighting. And that does show that there is 0 overspill of lighting from the edge where the fence is back onto any neighboring properties. Those are changes that we made to try to address concerns. The planning board asked us whether we could sort of change the orientation of the parking lot to be more, parallel to the Bents parking lot. And we did do a sample conceptual look at doing that. And what we found was that it actually brought more of the parking lot closer to abutting properties than the current plan because of the sort of rectangular shape of the current lot. There's only a limited portion of the lot now that's close to neighbors. So we didn't pursue that particular option, but we did try to incorporate all the other suggestions that we received. So you do have that revised plan. I gave it to the board electronically and I provided hard copies. We're going to share screens and we're going to be looking at that revised plan in a couple of minutes. So the uses approved in 2019 for Bent's were a first floor cafe with 16 seats, a commercial catering business occupying 350 square feet on the first floor. Then on the second floor, 5 small second floor apartments. And on the third floor, 3,500 square feet of commercial office space. So what I did in a memo that I sent you on October 24th, and in response to a question from the planning board, was I analyzed those uses based on current zoning requirements. If this were a commercial building or a mixed use building in the business district in Milton. And my analysis, as I explained in that memo, shows that the number of parking spaces we would provide in this updated plan addresses appropriately, although there is discretion on the part of the board, for example, for how much parking a cafe should have, how much parking a catering business should have. But looking at other decisions the board has made and looking at the standard, which is usually 1 parking space for every 2.5 seats or 2 seats in a restaurant, and so on and so forth. The resulting number of parking spaces with what remains of the old lot after new entrance is created and the new spaces in the new lot is a total that's almost equal to the 28 total spaces that we would be providing with this plan. The old plan for the Bent's lot in 2019 was for 18 spaces. However, 4 of those spaces were stacked employee parking spaces in the back of the lot. Very, not particularly convenient to use. And in fact, the tendency would be not to use those and to park in the other spaces. The second thing that parking plan showed was 3 regular parking spaces alongside the Bent's building. In this new plan, we've converted those to short-term delivery and pickup spaces, which are greatly needed both for the cafe and for the catering business. And they will provide short-term parking off the street as opposed to the present condition in which everybody parks who's going in to pick up food. Everyone parks on the street and it's pretty congested on the street. So one other point or a couple of other points I want to make. I don't know if the board's aware of this. In 2017, the Milton Town Meeting passed overlay zoning for the property to the rear of 672 and 70 Randolph Ave and 77 to 9 Pleasant Street. This overlay zoning is for assisted living. It's in place. It's been approved. It hasn't been used yet because the owner of the property died, and this property is in a probate process right now. But that use is there in the future. And the fact that it can be developed in this way to the rear of the property is one of the factors that I think this board should consider when they think about whether it might be appropriate to grant a use variance. The other condition you should consider is the current existing historic use of Bent's, which was entirely commercial and now is mixed use. And finally, I think that, these are existing conditions, potentially surrounding this residential lot on 3 sides. Furthermore, you have the topography, you have rock and granite underneath this site, which make it difficult to develop for ordinary construction purposes, but less difficult for laying out a parking area. What remains, however, what we all have to consider is the fact that if you create a parking area, you need to shield the view of the parking area from any properties that abut this property. This is obviously a concern of the neighbors. You'll see that we have 1 letter about it, and we've heard from them in the previous hearing. So what Falcone Properties has done with this updated plan is move the edge of the parking lot in and add additional and different screening. In this case, they're proposing, I think it's red maples and arborvitae. The arborvitae is a fast-growing evergreen. There are other evergreen trees that could be selected if they're more attractive. But the point is, an evergreen tree it provides a buffer all year round. And at the corner of the parking lot that's closest within 20 feet at that corner to the 2 ends of the residential properties, that screening has been revised and has been thickened so that in addition to leaving all the existing vegetation that's in the 40-foot setback, there will be additional trees planted at that corner. They will block the view basically of the fence because that's what you're going to be able to see from the neighboring properties. I believe comments have been made that, people in the parking lot would be able to look out down at the properties on Randolph Ave. And my answer to that is that there's going to be a 7-foot fence and screening around this parking lot. So nobody's going to be looking out because 7-foot fence is taller than most people. It's certainly taller than me. And because, certainly the lights from cars will be much lower than the top of the fence. And the lighting is designed to shine only back on into the parking lot. So we don't believe that this parking lot design will be detrimental to any neighboring properties. And we also think that it's an interesting way of using the property that's there without changing the historic house and without changing the appearance of the house from Randolph Ave. We feel, we know that Milton is very protective, and rightly so, of its historic properties because they are part of the way the town looks. And so, I think this proposal, in addition to providing needed additional parking for the Bentz building and providing a better parking circulation and layout in the rear, it would also help protect the property to the front by providing a good use for that back area, by excluding other development, by avoiding possibly someone attempting to take this back area or back lot and join it with the assisted living proposal that may be coming in a few years. So while it's commercial, this use doesn't create any new buildings. It improves the flow of traffic. It reduces parking on Pleasant Street, and traffic will still be directed in by Bentz, and the traffic and the parking lot will only be accessed from the Bentz parking lot. Finally, I'm not going to talk about this, but I'm going to ask Greg Morris to explain it. There will be a stormwater drainage system installed under this parking lot, and it's going to connect back to systems that are already in place on the Bentz property. All stormwater drainage will be directed back towards Bentz. This is an elevated site, and now potentially with no stormwater receptacles, stormwater flow will go right down this hill and into neighboring properties and even into the front of the lot. So I believe that's an additional benefit that this design will bring. Finally, just in conclusion, I would say this is a net increase of only 10 parking spaces. It will be a benefit to the neighborhood because it will reduce parking on the street. It will certainly improve the parking configuration behind Bentz, which was pretty tight in the previous application, but there wasn't any other land that could be used at that time. So at this time, I would like to ask if it's okay with the board that Greg Morris share screens and that we look through the actual site plan, some of the details of the site plan. And I think Greg can kind of take us through that.
Yeah, that sounds great, Marion. Go ahead.
Okay.
Thank you. This is Greg Morse, registered engineer, Morse Engineering. Can you see that on the screen?
Yes.
Yeah, very well.
Thank you very much. So again, Gregory Morse, I'm a registered engineer with Morse Engineering, representing Falcone Properties, LLC. Gonna kind of rehash everything that Marion just laid out, starting here with our existing conditions plan of the site. You have this property right here, which is the assessor's parcel I-49. This is the Bentz Cookie Factory. That's the existing building right there. That lot's approximately 9,700 square feet in size. This is the property to the south that was acquired by the Falcones, parcel I-4-10, being 672 Randolph Ave, the existing home right here. That's a single family home. That lot itself is 23,000 square feet in size. So we're talking a total land area combined of approximately 33,000 square feet. It's entirely upland area. There's no wetlands, there's no floodplain at the property. It's all in the Residence C zoning district. When you look at the topography of the lot is generally the highest over here at the eastern corner, being at elevation 119, and the land generally slopes in a westerly direction toward the intersection of Randolph Ave and Pleasant Street, where you're at elevation 98. The lot lines here, I think, are a unique shape, specifically because these lines were created around existing buildings. Both of these buildings here were constructed in the 1800s, I believe, prior to any zoning being in place. You have unique lot shapes in this specific scenario. We did do some soil testing out at the site. You see demarcations here of test pits that we did at the rear of the subject property. Generally had loamy soil, loamy sands. We had groundwater 5 to 8 feet down below the ground surface. But that leads us to our proposal. If you looked at our site plan, we submitted a revised site plan last week, which was prepared as a response to the comments we had from abutters and comments that we had received from the planning board. That revised site plan scaled back the project a little bit from what was originally submitted. But it's essentially this expansion right here of a new 16 space parking area. That 16 space parking area would connect right here to the existing Bent's Cookie property. As you can see, we would be eliminating 4 spaces from the Bent's property. However, with the construction of this new 16 space parking lot, it's actually a net of 12 new spaces on the entire site. As Marion stated, there is no building expansion here. You won't see any expansion on the Bent's property or on the single family home. It purely is the parking area. Zooming into that parking area here a little bit, you'll see that we've laid it out with 19 by 8.5 foot wide parking spaces. 5 of those would be reserved for tenant parking. Those are the spaces marked here with the T. The remainder of those spaces would be for the general use of the commercial uses within the Bent's factory building. Around the parking lot, starting right here, coming down where my cursor is, we would have a wooden fence. That's a 7-foot high fence that you see. And then behind the fence in green here are plantings that were proposed, consisting again of red maples and arborvitae. It's a minimum of a 20-foot setback from the abutting residential property to the parking lot, 20 feet at this location. On the backside of the parking lot, we're providing a 40-foot buffer as a minimum there. There's existing heavy vegetation within that area already. Parking lot would be entirely paved. It would have a precast concrete curb around the parking lot area. What that does is it allows us to catch any drainage within that parking surface and direct it to 2 catch basins, 1 catch basin here and 1 catch basin here. Those catch basins would then take the water and put it into a subsurface recharge system. We designed a series of subsurface infiltration chambers to redirect the runoff into the soil under the parking lot. Submitted with the application was also a photometric plan. The photometric plan here depicts a lot of colors and a lot of little numbers, but ultimately what these colors and numbers depict is they depict the locations of the lights within the parking area. Those locations, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 9 lights. Those are connected to the fence. They're not mounted up on fence. They're not mounted up on light poles. They're actually mounted to the fence. They're directed into the parking area. And what these little numbers represent, these represent the amount of foot candles or light that would be emanating from that light source. And what's important to note is that the abutting property lines all the way around were emanating 0.0, which means that there's no light spillover from this site onto any of the abutting properties. So going back to our site plan, again, it's a net of 12 parking spaces total with this layout. It provides a minimum of a 20-foot setback to the residential property next door. We've depicted the location of the abutting household here, the closest abutter, if you will. Depicts the landscape screening and the fencing that's associated with this. You know, when this project was originally before the board back in 2018-19, the plan that was approved when the Falcones only owned the Bent's property proposed 18 parking spaces. And that's what we felt comfortable with. That's what we thought was the number that was going to be necessary to accommodate the uses within that building. But I think as we've seen over time, those businesses are successful while they're not expanding. There is a need for more parking here, and we can provide it within this parking space, getting traffic off the street, creating a safer passageway for anyone in the parking lot, and relieving that need. I'm going to turn it back over to Marion. I'll leave the screen share up if you want, or I can take it down, Marion.
Would you go to the drainage? Would you talk just a little bit more about the drainage system? I mean, you've explained it already that you're going to catch the drainage, but show us the direction,
Yep.
and just make it clear that drainage will flow away from the neighbors on the Randolph Ave side and will flow back into the Bent's parking lot.
Sure. So when we do a drainage analysis on a project like this, we start by doing an analysis of the existing or the pre-development condition. And then we do an analysis of the post-development condition. And what we're required to do is we're required to show that we're not increasing the rates or the volumes of runoff to the down gradient properties. In this case here, it was fairly easy to do that. When we start, we look at a pre-development or an existing conditions sub-catchment plan. And what these red lines depict is these depict the sub-catchments on where water's flowing. Everything within this sub 1A, if you look at the contours, water flows perpendicular to the contour elevations. This sub 1A area ultimately discharges down to Pleasant Street. This sub 2 area, if I look at the contours with water running perpendicular to it, ultimately runs to the abutting property. So you can see that the whole back of this site, you know, a portion of it runs to the abutters, a portion of it is maintained on this site. And then when we overlay the proposed conditions, here's the proposed conditions, those subcatchment lines get revised. And what gets significantly revised here is that everything that was up gradient here that used to run across in the pre-development condition uncontrolled now is intercepted by the proposed parking lot. That proposed parking lot, as I stated previously, has a precast concrete curb, which essentially acts as a dam so that any water entering the parking lot area remains within that parking lot area. And within that parking lot area, it then is further directed into the two catch basins that we have and the subsurface drainage system. How we graded out this parking lot, you'll see that we have a slope here of approximately 2%, which is sloped in a northerly direction. You'll see contour 115 here. You'll see contour 114 right here at the Bent's property, so that all of the water in this parking lot is headed in that direction, not only toward these two catch basins, but ultimately toward the Bent's property. This sub 2 area is area that remains entirely vegetated, either with natural vegetation or additional landscape plantings. There's no impervious surface. There's no parking lot surface that's within that sub 2. That sub 2 is what's going to the neighbor's property. So we run a model, modeling the soil conditions, modeling the slope of the land in the areas of those subcatchments, and we run calculations, which we did. And we've submitted those to the Milton Department of Public Works as well as the Planning Board to document those conditions and have the town's engineer review those.
Okay, thank you. I think that unless Robert Falcone has anything he wants to add, that's our initial presentation.
Okay.
We'd be happy to answer questions and listen to comments.
Yeah, that's great. Why don't we do that with Mr. Morse, because his presentation was very well done, but it is complex. So, Kathleen, do you have any questions of Mr. Morse?
Well, I'm looking at the layout of the parking spaces and looking at and remembering when I did the title to this property, there is that 2002 plan, which was sent along with all the materials, which shows a right of way where you have the parking, the existing parking.
Yes.
So that 2002 plan shows a right of way. Well, who has the right to use that right of way? And I see that it has parking spaces at the end for employees, which would presumably block somebody's access to that right of way. So I'm just kind of curious is how in 2019 was that addressed? And now when you're talking about, still showing those parking spaces at the end in the stub, and how does that work with this right of way that supposedly is there?
Sure.
So, what happened with the right of way was that Falcone Properties had an attorney file an action to quiet title with the land court for
Yeah.
the right of way, and they received a decision allowing them to have control of the right of way, basically favorable decision.
Yeah.
And in the previous application, I believe I provided a copy of that decision. I can provide it if you'd like to review it.
Okay, because I mean,
that's why a great deal of that parking area behind Vince, where we actually provided parking spaces, that could not have happened if that issue had not been resolved.
Sure, absolutely. And then the other thing is that I noticed, in the prior approval, you had sort of 4 employee parking space that were sort of stacking. Are you still doing that?
Well, we removed them because we feel that's not ideal. And, they could be put back in, but the problem, you use stack parking when you just really have a very tight space and there's no other way to provide additional parking. You designate it for employees because employees come in the morning and leave at night, so on and so forth. If you don't have to do that, it's better not to, because what tends to happen is that the employees will still try to park in the other parking spaces, and then there's not as much space for everybody else.
Right.
So here,
I think it's a plus that you don't have those, because everybody complains about the noise. In the hearings that we had for the fruit center when they were applying for additional employee parking, that was the concern of the abutters, was the noise of those stacking machines. So
no, this I want to clarify, that is not what this was.
Okay.
When we call this the old site, we'll show you, I think it's the first page in the plan.
Yeah.
What's being called stacked parking is just one space with another space in back of it. So let's go
sort of tandem parking.
It's really not stacked. That's probably the wrong term to use. Yes, it's tandem.
It's tandem parking.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Again, it's somewhat, it's a solution, but it's not really desirable for the reasons that I already explained.
Right, but we should be calling it tandem.
Yep, sorry, it is tandem, that's right.
So
Okay.
Tandem is what was approved on the previous plan. The current proposal here does not include any tandem parking. We eliminated those spaces.
Okay. Those are the questions I had so far.
Okay, thank you very much. Ted, do you have any questions of Mr. Morse? I'm sorry, we can't hear you, Ted.
Okay, sorry about that. As I was listening to you, Marion, I was trying to, what you said the net was 12 new spaces, and the total is how many spaces now? 20, 28 or 26 or?
I think it's 28. I'd like to direct those to Greg because he keeps
Okay.
track of this better than I do. But I thought it was 28. And then the net difference, because by creating this new parking lot, you have to create entrances and you remove
Right.
parking spaces. So the
Right,
net is 12, but the total will be 28.
right. Yeah, I just want to make sure I understand the plan. I mean, I see obviously the 3 at the end or the 6 that have the E in them. And am I correct that in the new area, it's proposed to have 16 spaces, right? That's 22.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right?
Yep, I think
And
so.
then the Ts, there's 4 out of those 5 Ts that are on the Bent's parcel that will be lost, right? And one of them will remain.
Well, it's not going to be a T, but it will be a parking space.
Okay, and which one is that remains?
I think it's
That one? Okay.
So this one where the cursor is gets relocated so that
Okay.
there's 5 existing tenant spaces right here. 4 of them get eliminated with the new access.
Yep.
This one is being eliminated just as a tenant space.
Yep.
So that these become the 5 new tenant spaces right there.
Right.
So,
No, I
yeah,
get that. Yeah.
All tenant spaces are relocated within the new parking.
Right. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. And then there's the other 4 spaces here. And there's short-term spaces along here. Is that correct?
Along the building.
Along the building?
Right along the side of the
Yeah.
building for the drop-offs, correct.
I'm sorry, I'm pointing, but you can't see where I'm pointing. That's
Yeah, that's one problem with this system.
okay. So I guess at the present, my other question is there any, or are there measurements of what the square footage in area and the dimensions will be? Because I'm not sure I see them on here of the parking area, the proposed parking area.
Of the new area.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do we, let's see.
Well, that looks like
24
24 feet between the curbing, I guess.
So it's a 24-foot aisle down the middle, and then the parking spaces on each side are 19 feet deep. So I didn't give you an overall, but it would be 24 plus 19 plus 19. It's a total of 62 feet wide from side to side.
Yeah.
And lengthwise, it's 9 times 8.5, 76.5 feet the long way this way.
Okay.
So
And that's the curbing, the measurement between the curbings.
Correct.
And then the fence is outside of that.
Correct. The fence is about 5 feet off of the face of the curb.
Okay. So do you have
4,743 square feet? Is that right?
how much?
4,743 square feet. Let me do it again.
Yes.
Okay. Except it's not completely rectangular, so that's slightly off.
Right. Right.
I mean, it's less than that, but that gives you an idea of. And we
Okay,
can get an exact number for you.
Okay, yeah, you don't have an exact number right now, it sounds like.
No. Well, I'd rather not try to estimate the precise one, but we'll send it to you.
Okay. I guess for right now, those are the only, the only questions I have relating to the engineering and the parking. Mr. Chair, are we asking other questions too relating to other things, or are we just focusing on the,
No, I think you can ask other questions.
okay. So, and I apologize if I missed this, but it sounds like since you had requests that you talked about when you were speaking, Marion, that you
Yes.
talked to neighbors about this, and what was their response? Was it support or?
Well, there are
What-
two neighbors, two properties, the Manning property and the neighbors next to the property on Randolph Ave, 728 and no, 768 and 788, I think. Anyway, those two adjacent properties. The neighbors directly adjacent are represented by an attorney. We sent these materials to him on October 24th. We've been waiting for a response. We did get a letter back today, and if you haven't seen it, they did express, they were actually that attorney was who requested a number of these changes at the meeting, including the fencing to match the fence fencing, the lighting inside the fencing, no light poles, and a better setback, in the back of the parking lot, and, screening and so forth. So we tried to address those requests and
Right.
sent the letter back. It sounds as if, well, there's still some general questions, and I believe that attorney is here tonight, so you can expect that you'll be hearing from those neighbors via their attorney. The other neighbors, the Mannings, we actually spoke, we delivered all of these materials on October 24th again. And Robert Falcone met with the father of Caitlin Manning, who owns the property. And that's Nicholas Sesso. And Bob can report on that. But again, I think these changes are improvements. I think the overall concern coming from both neighbors is, what are you really going to do here? Are you planning a big commercial development? Are you going to change this site? Are you really doing this because you're going to make more changes and of a commercial nature? And the best response I can give to that at this point is to say that the Falcones are not planning anything like that. This application is just for a parking lot. And one of the purposes of doing this way, after much consideration of what could be done with that property after Falcone's purchased it, was that you could do the parking lot, you could benefit the whole site by adding better parking, but you could still preserve the house, the historic look of the house, and really just the way this property looks today would not change. And that a parking lot, because there'd be no buildings, and because there would be screening and fencing, would not be up in the rear there, would not be particularly visible, and would not be intrusive. Certainly nothing would be less intrusive. But given the context or the surroundings, the zoning around this property, the fact that there is an assisted living overlay zone just to the back and the side of this property, there will be changes in the future. And in order to prevent or forestall further changes to this property, or to put in place a use that isn't very intrusive, this proposal is being put forward and not another one. So it's a little bit hard. It's hard to say. We're not planning to do any of those things that the neighbors appear to be concerned about. The Falcones are not planning to do those things.
Mm-hmm.
I do understand why, seeing this plan, that might be the first thing that would leap to mind, but that is not the plan. So in any case, there was a meeting with the parent of Caitlin Manning. We have not had an in-person meeting. We'd be happy to do it on the site with the neighbors because they're represented by an attorney, but we've sent all the materials to the attorney and he has responded with a letter, which you should have in your materials.
Well, if we do, I haven't seen it, but.
Yeah, it only came in this afternoon.
Oh, okay.
But the attorney is supposed to be here, so I think he'll explain what's in the letter.
Good.
I don't want to speak for him.
All right. So they're just the two.
So that was the
butters.
outreach, because
Yeah.
those are the neighbors that have property that's anywhere near this site. The other area, the big area that could become assisted living, as I explained, or I may not have explained it, but it's owned by somebody who died last year. And that property is in a probate process right now. So there isn't really anybody to consult with. But
Okay.
we did, with the original Bent's application, we did consult with the owner of that property, and he was supportive of the Bent's application.
Well, the developer of that project disappeared ages ago.
Yeah, but the
So-
zoning is there.
Yeah,
And I'm sure well, I don't know. I can't speak for developers, but
Yeah.
they're always looking. So I want you all to be aware that that zoning has been adopted and is an overlay that's available. I don't really, I hesitate to even mention that because it neither helps nor hinders this proposal, really. I mean, we don't want this site, there's no proposal here to convert this site to commercial use. If anything, we think this use will provide a better buffer against what other uses may come in on the other side, because it will not be particularly visible and it will not change the property very much overall.
Okay, thank you. I think that's all the questions I have right now, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Ted. I appreciate very much. Mr. Morse, I can remember when we were first having hearings on the original application. And one of the principal issues was not just parking, but it was the parking on Pleasant Street at the time. I can remember distinctly testimony regarding the closeness of the present Bent's property with the cars entering Pleasant Street, and that some of these parking spaces on the front of the property, which is shown in your plan, Pleasant Street's a fairly narrow street, and there were serious concerns about public safety, cars turning onto Pleasant Street, turning down Pleasant Street, and all of a sudden being faced with substantial people parking in these spaces, pulling out into the to the way, generally speaking, and about accidents. The cars seem to accelerate once they get to Pleasant Street, and general public safety concerns. Can you tell us, in your opinion, as a professional engineer, does the construction of this interior parking in the additional spaces, does it help to alleviate some of the public safety issues out there? And prior, at the present time, has there been a lot of accidents out there on Pleasant Street, and personal injuries, people backing into these spaces? And how will the addition of these interior spaces affect public safety issues on Pleasant Street?
Sure.
Thank
Yeah, I don't have any accident data at this intersection. That's something I could certainly look into with the police department, but I don't have any accident data, so I really can't speak to that. When we first came in with the original application, I don't believe any of the parking spaces on Pleasant Street were painted or even demarcated on the ground in any way, shape, or form. So, prior to those markings, which I depict on this plan here, being installed, those were reviewed by Town of Milton DPW prior to the markings going on the street. That being said, we don't take credit for any of those parking spaces with our parking layout on the premises. I think people look for the shortest path to the business that they're going in. Construction of this parking lot, I think, is needed. I think there's obviously more cars coming to this site than we anticipated in the beginning. Being able to get them off the street, I think, is a good thing. The parking spaces out front, I generally think those are or should be essentially used for people that are going to the cafe. You know, if those were timed, 30-minute parking or something to that effect that the town could enforce, I think that would be, a prudent thing to prevent employees from parking there all day long. The parking lot out back, I see essentially being for the tenants of the apartment and the employees of the businesses within the Bent's building. People that are doing a quick drop or getting a quick sandwich from the cafe, I think are going to park at the closest location, which are probably those spaces on Pleasant Street, regardless of whether this parking space here gets built or not.
Okay, thank you very, very much. Marion, let me just ask you one question, and it may be the lead in. I did note that there was at least one or two hearings before the planning board. Has the planning board issued any decisions on this matter, or is the matter still pending before the planning board?
Yeah, actually, the planning board wasn't able to schedule a second hearing before your first hearing. We tried to do that, but their hearing is this Thursday. So that will be the second hearing after the first one, which was quite a while ago now. So they certainly didn't issue a decision. They did, listen to comments and provide some of their own. And we came away from that meeting looking at revisions to this plan, which you see before you. So moving the back of the lot, the parking lot further away from neighbors, reducing a few of this, taking away a few of the spaces and doing an analysis of how many spaces really would be desirable for this mixed use based on current zoning requirements for parking for a commercial or a mixed use building. So I did that analysis. You received it. I sent it to the planning board. And then in addition to that, the introduction, adding fencing to the parking lot, similar to what's around the Bent's parking lot, and putting more variety of vegetation. I think we just had arborvitae around the parking lot, the usual standard row of arborvitae. Instead, now we have a combination of red maple and arborvitae. And we expect to get more comments back on Thursday when we go back to the planning board. So I can't tell you at this point that I have a report on the acceptability of the site plan from the planning board's perspective. But it's very helpful that you could schedule this hearing so we could at least get started with you. And then we would certainly be expecting to come back to you after we meet with the planning board.
Thank you. That really helps to explain the position of where you are and, so I don't think I have any more questions. How do you want to proceed from here, Mrs. McKettrick? Do you have any additional evidence that you want to present?
Not at this time. I'd be happy to hear from others who are at the hearing and want to comment, and certainly from the board again.
Great, that will be helpful. So let's do it this way. Are there members of the public who are present tonight that have questions from Mrs. McKettrick or questions of Mr. Morse? And if so, please raise your hand so we can make sure you can get your questions answered.
Do have two hands up right now.
Okay. Who's the first one to put their hand up?
The first is Nick Sesso. I'll let him speak.
Sure. Mr. Sesso, are you there? Hello?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, good, great. And have you had an opportunity, have you been here the entire hearing? So
Yes,
that's great. Well, welcome to the Board of Appeals. And let me ask you if you have a few questions, just please state your questions and we'll see if we can get some answers.
Can I speak to this whole thing before I ask my questions?
Well, look at it. This is not a court of law. I'm not going to prevent you, but most people tend to ask questions before they give their final opinions as to what they believe or want the planning board to strike it. Well, even the planning board and the Board of Appeals to um, how they should vote and how they should consider this. But sure, you can make some introductory remarks if you can, but keep them on the brief side, knowing that we're probably going to hear from somebody else, and the planning board is going to be listening to everyone, and they're going to have their hearing, and so we don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves. So go ahead, make some preliminary remarks, and we're delighted to hear from you.
Thank you, sir. My name is Nick Sesso, and I moved to 688 Randolph Ave in the 70s, so I have quite a bit of insight as to what's happening in this little section of Milton over the years. My daughter, Caitlin, who you refer to as Caitlin Manning, is now Caitlin Villard, and her husband, Ryan Villard, and their newborn Maura, along with Caitlin's mother, Mary. They live at 688 now.
Well, congratulations. That's wonderful to hear.
Okay, so when we move to Milton, buy a house in Milton, start a family in Milton, basically invest our lives into Milton, we should be able to have the expectation that in our residential neighborhood, our backyard should not become someone's non-conforming business commercial parking lot. In past years, when the bakery wanted to expand their operations, we all at 688 actively supported all their efforts. I remember how right at the beginning, my neighbor was adamantly opposed to any change at all. As I explained to her, this is our neighbor, we want them to do well. She replied to me, it's not about today, but about change after change after change tomorrow, and it will never end. So after all the changes, coffee shops, sandwiches, catering, sit-down dining, tables outside, multiple offices, 6 apartments, and all the activity that goes with all of that and more, the immediate next door neighbor at 672 basically feels like he got forced out and sold to the Falcone property people. So now at 672, the Falcones want to expand ever more in the form of a monstrous, and it is monstrous by you're given the dimensions for the first time tonight that I'm hearing a parking lot that that no way does it conform at all with any of your zoning laws. You speak about 10 to 12 expanded spaces, but it is in fact 16 spaces that my family's gonna have to be living with. Let's remember that the Falcone property people bought Ben's broken cookie factory consisting of a building on a parcel not much bigger than the building itself. In fact, a 2-acre parcel had been part of the property, but was sold off shortly before the sale of the building. Again, let me say, Falcone Properties knowingly purchased a property with no land. There was a right-of-way that we spoke about to the left of the building that somehow the Falcone company maneuvered to own and presently use as their parking lot. I got a question for you. What exactly are the zoning laws? I know they are written in great detail, but are they enforceable guidelines to protect us all as equals, or are they merely suggestions that the powerful can maneuver around? I am not looking for an answer to that question, but I am asking that you give the little guy a break and protect us. I am asking that the zoning laws protect my family at 688 and the family at 678 so they don't become the victims of what in the cities would be called zoning creep. Milton is better than this. Now, again, I want to address, you talk about 10 to 12 extra parking spaces, but it is in fact, as you say, 16 spaces that's going to be 21 feet from my daughter's yard. We're talking a 72-foot by 86-foot, and I'm only getting those dimensions tonight for the first time. That is monstrous, and it will be visible to my family. We have a two-story home, and we'll be looking down on this all the time. And as far as somebody from the planning board asked that the parking lot be made a little wider beside the right of way. We never, I know there is a rendering of that, but my family never got to see that rendering. I saw it when I was in the backyard. And it is in fact a preferable situation because it will be further away from the neighbors. Right now, the fence is 21 feet from my daughter's backyard and 20 feet from the 672 backyard. You gave a little, when you made the lot a little smaller, all you did was you gave a little more buffering to the estate of Greg Zazula, but it did nothing to help the immediate abutters. I thank you for the opportunity to speak, and we look forward to the next planning board meeting so we can basically have a back and forth question and answer thing, because we're really unhappy about this whole situation. And we're looking for relief because we bought into a residential neighborhood, and that's not what it's going to be. Thank you very much for your time.
Well, thank you for your comments, Mr. Sesso, and good luck at the planning board, I believe on Thursday. Do we have another member of the public who wants to ask some questions of Mrs. McKettrick or engineering expert?
Yes, we have Ryan Villard.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can, sir.
Yeah, hi. I'm with my father-in-law right now in the we're actually outside of town hall. We thought there was a meeting here.
Don't you
So
tell us,
basically what
would you tell us your address so we could have that?
I'm at 688.
Okay, great.
So
do you have any questions of Mrs. McKettrick or
yes. So basically I just want to add on that you know, my family, we live in the second floor of the abutting neighbor. We're going to be looking straight down into this parking lot. So basically what we're asking is, you know, first is to not have the lot at all. That when we made suggestions about the lights and the fence was more about, you know, if this was to happen. First thing we would like is for it to not happen. So what we would like to ask, you know, is first, just please deny this. But, you know, we look back and when we got the notice that I have in front of me from 2019 about, you know, the new businesses, we never had a problem with them. But now, you know, as everyone knows, Randolph Ave has become, you know, Milton Motor Speedway. Our only safety is in the back. And now we're taking cars from the front to the back. my father was a police officer in this town for 30 years, and he's told me a lot of horrific stories about the parking lots at the food center and other places where people go to drive backwards, but they actually drive forwards. We have a child. My neighbors have 3. There's 2 more at the now Falcone property. We have to now worry about this in our backyard, not just our front yard. So what we're asking is to please deny this, because our only safe space is now going to be infringed. So I guess that's all I would like to say. And, you know, we'll be at the meeting on, I think it's this Thursday. So we will be there to continue this. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Vlad. We appreciate very much your attending and listening to the evidence. Do we have anybody else who, member of the public who wishes to speak?
That feedback was really messing up.
No, but you came off good though. Oh, how do I get out of this?
Sorry, hold on.
We can listen to that.
Okay, Paul Hogan.
Mr. Hope, you there?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I filed a notice of appearance.
I'm sorry, Mr. Hogan. Well, I guess you're an attorney then. Let me ask you this. Could we have your professional address, sir?
Yeah, I am a resident of Milton. I live at 56 Pierce Street, but my professional address is in far away in Canton, at 345 Neponset Street.
Well, great. Welcome to the Board of Appeals.
Thank you. I represent the closest abutters to the project, Emma and Trung Mai, who live at 678 Randolph Avenue. And they are raising a family there, have some children, and they've been concerned about this proposal. We did appear at the planning board, and I was with them, and I spoke briefly there, and then they chimed in after me. And if it's okay with Mr. Chairman, I would suggest the same tonight. They do appreciate.
I don't mind that, but I just want everyone to understand that this is not a final hearing in this application, and it's going to be heard by the planning board. We don't know whether that's going to be finished. We're not going to vote on this application until the planning board has a written decision in our hands. So, yeah, I'll certainly let you express your opinions, but understand that it's we're far from over here, and all the evidence is not concluded. So go ahead, keep it as brief as you can, if you would.
I will. I think that my clients do appreciate what Falcone Properties has done in terms of the lighting issue, which was raised at the planning board, and the fencing. Their major concern is that they are, as the prior speaker said, about 20 feet, 21 feet from the back part of the lot. So they have some concern about that. They had hoped that the lot could have been redesigned a little bit to create a larger setback from that. And then the idea of the trees is also appreciated by my clients. I do have one question, maybe for Mr. Morris and Mrs. McKettrick. There is an existing driveway to the house that you just bought. That driveway is not going to connect to the parking lot, correct?
Correct.
That driveway just goes to that particular residence.
That's right, and that will remain.
Okay, thank you. Well, given the fact that you're going to have a lot of action at the planning board, I did submit a letter, as Mrs. McKettrick said, and I believe all the members will get a copy of that. I noticed that Mr. Dialer did not. I'm sorry about that. I'm going to ask now if my clients are on, if they want to address the board.
Yeah, I don't hear them, Mr. Hogan.
Okay. Well, then I will finish up a little.
Do you have any of the clients of Mr. Hogan have
The,
their hands raised? Or do you have them visually?
What would their names be?
MMI or Trung Mai,
Okay,
MAI.
I have Trung Mai's hand up.
Okay,
Do you want to hear from Mr. Mai and Mr. Hogan?
Yes,
Okay, great. Mr. Mai, are you there?
Hi, can you hear me?
Oh, very well. Loud, clear, and distinct.
Thank you very much. I'm sitting right here with my wife, Emma Mai. My name is Trung Mai. We live at 678 Randolph Ave. We are the neighbors who are closest to this proposal. We've lived here for 9 years. We started off with 2 children, and while we were living here, our third was born. Their ages 12, 10, and 6. The backyard has always been a reprieve from us. The front yard, Randolph Ave, is just crazy. And the solace that we've always had was that we could just leave the kids in the backyard and they have the peace and quiet of the woods right behind us. Our neighbors, our previous neighbors, Sarah and Jerry Fowler, they were great friends with us. They also had 3 children close to our ages. And in the area that is proposed with the parking lot, the kids used to play there all the time. And it's kind of unfortunate that this proposal kind of takes away the possibility of that area being utilized as such. The parking lot is, we still object to the plans. The parking lot is still way too close to our property. Imagine it's about a car length away from our property line. It's just really big. We, as everyone has else, you know, everyone from Nick Sesso to Ryan Villard have suggested, we were more accommodating to reshaping the parking lot size as to widen it instead of kind of abutting into our properties. We're concerned with the loss of privacy. We're concerned with the loss of property value. And in terms of accidental data, when the Falcones purchased the property and the Bent's building was being renovated, my car was actually struck by a vehicle backing in, leaving that little passageway around 2018-19. And we had to get that repaired because it directly impacted us, my red Camry. So in terms of, you know, concerns of safety, the more cars that are entering and exiting that passageway also concerns me. Thank you very much for giving me the possibility to communicate with everyone.
Yeah, well, thank you. Well, we appreciate your questions, and we appreciate your attending tonight's meeting, and presumably you'll be attending the planning board, or well, let's leave it at that. Julia, is there anybody else who wants to be heard tonight?
Nope, I don't have any other hands up.
Okay, Mrs. McKettrick, do you want to proceed further, or would you like to basically suspend your presentation and have your planning board meeting and see how many more meetings you're going to have there, and even some reasonable way?
I really don't have a lot to add. It's very interesting to hear the specific comments and very helpful from neighbors. Based on what we've heard tonight, it's likely that we will continue to look at whether the layout of the parking lot can be improved. I will say to the neighbors, I understand you'd rather not have anything happen. We've tried to present the reasons tonight why this is being proposed, what the benefits could be. I think that the key issue for everyone is to continue communicating. If we do create alternative layout plans with the engineer, we need to review them with the neighbors who've spoken tonight. And I understand that the Trungs are represented by an attorney, so that means through the attorney and then back to the Trungs. Sometimes maybe a meeting with all of us together can be arranged. We just ask for everybody's indulgence in trying to set up such meetings, because I think it can be helpful, and it can be very helpful to us as the applicants to determine where things stand. So I appreciate any continued communication with neighbors that can be made available or made possible. Appreciate the time you spent tonight. And I think it's been quite helpful to us to hear all of this. We will be back at the planning board in just a few days. So most likely there aren't going to be dramatic changes between now and Thursday night. But we will likely continue this discussion, and the planning board may have additional suggestions and recommendations. So let's just see whether we can get something out of this process that's useful for all of us, for the applicant, for the neighbors. And I really do appreciate the time that the Board of Appeals has taken tonight. What I'd like to ask is that the Board of Appeals continue this hearing. We will have a meeting on Thursday, the 9th, but you don't want to schedule a meeting, the next week, because we may have to have more than one meeting with the planning board, and they're very busy, as are you. So maybe you could look at your schedule and allow a reasonable good amount of time for further consultation and meetings with the planning board, but you do have to set a date for the continuation. I understand that.
Do you think that going out 60 days is too long? Or would you rather set something like 45 days, and we can always bump that hearing if you're still before the planning board, or if your team needs additional time to prepare new plans, or to do additional studies, or whatever is appropriate under the circumstances.
Well, I'd like to ask Bob Falcone to weigh in on that, but I will say this. Anything short of 60 days puts you into the period around the holidays, and it does become quite difficult to schedule meetings at that time. And our schedules are a little bit busier then too for almost everybody. So, 60 days isn't as far away as it might seem. I don't think it's unreasonable myself. But Bob, Falcone, what do you think about that? Can you? You're still there. You have to do raised hand to speak.
He's a panelist. He just has to unmute.
Oh, okay. Bob, can you let us know what you think about scheduling the next meeting? Is 60 days acceptable?
Hello, sorry about that. I think that probably should be answered by Greg to see how long he thinks he needs to try a few different lot models.
Sure. I'm glad to go to the planning board on Thursday night and look at some additional layouts potentially the week after. That puts us the week after that into Thanksgiving. Try to meet with the abutters. I would say anytime after December 17th, we'd have revised plans submitted to Milton. So I guess the first available meeting after December 17th.
Well, if that happened, Marion, and you have revised plans on the 17th, presumably they're going to be filed with the planning board, and there'll be another planning board meeting. So I tend to think what you're saying is that sometime either at the end of January or early February, something.
Well, I would tend to say more near the beginning of January, but maybe second or third week. I just ask that it not be the week after Christmas, please, because I'm not going to be here. And I think that's too soon anyway, isn't it?
Maybe. Let me ask
and I don't know what your schedules will allow too. If you're going to be away and you won't be here till the beginning of February, then it will be then. But it could be mid-January. I certainly think by then we're going to know where we're going. If we can't come up with a good plan, we'll be able to let you know that.
Yeah, that sounds fine. Let me, Kathleen, without breaching any confidences, are you going to be on the ocean blue some in January.
No, I'm holding off on that ocean blue stuff until, the summer.
Okay. The ocean.
Although I'm working on it, I'm working on a deal to do a boat to Grenada, but yeah, I don't know how that'll work out.
Well, it sounds it's a wonderful place to visit, so you would be available sometime in January. How about you,
Yeah.
Ted? You have vacation plans or travel plans? Does you want to?
I have no travel plans at present in January. So
Okay, I think I will be here January. February is up in the air. How about sometime, Julie? Do you have your calendar there? And you have
I
some
do.
time in the
The
middle?
month is pretty open. Did you want to do the second week or the third week? Second week would be the week of the 7th.
I'd say the week of the 14th, something like that.
Okay. Do you want to do Tuesday? Well, that's the day after Martin Luther King. Tuesday the 16th is right after Martin Luther King Day. Would you want to do that, or Wednesday the 17th?
I think you might be looking at the wrong Tuesday.
No, I am.
Monday the 16th, Tuesday the 17th.
For January, I'm looking at
Yeah.
Tuesday
Yeah.
the 16th.
Right. I'm looking at a calendar too.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm looking at the wrong year. I'm sorry. Okay, go ahead. Ignore me.
We won't ignore you. We appreciate your presence.
Okay, now I have it. I see. Okay.
So Mary,
Tuesday the 16th?
yeah, do you want to, how about the 16th? And if this is still extending into the planning board, we can have just a 1-minute meeting and bump it for another week, a month, or whatever we need. Did that sound good for you? 16th?
good for me.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yep, it's certainly fine for me. Thank you.
Okay, and so why don't we do this? I'd certainly ask that it would be helpful to the Board of Appeals. And I don't want to interfere with the planning board in any extent, but if you have new plans or and I don't mean de minimis matters, but if you're changing the shape of the lot or the number of parking spaces or whatever, if you could perhaps maybe send a copy to Julia so that she can submit them to the board here, and then we won't we can take a look at those as you continue on with the planning board. That would be certainly helpful.
Yep.
And it may shorten the time for our consideration of this, but we want everyone to have their full opportunity to be heard. So without further comment, Julia, I don't want to put you into are you skiing or something in January, or?
I don't have any plans as of now, so I should be good.
Okay, well, we want to be sure you're going to be with us.
Yep.
Okay, so by agreement of the parties, we're going to continue this application until January 16th at, do you want to do 7 o'clock again, Marion, or would you like something a little bit earlier? Or?
Well, 7 o'clock's great for me, if that's good for you.
It's okay, 7, Teddy?
Yes, fine. Yep.
Okay, and okay, that's fine. So we're going to continue this hearing until January 16th, 2024 at 7 p.m. And I feel embarrassed to say, but I hope everyone has a happy Thanksgiving Day and happy Christmas.
Happy New Year. Happy everything. Seriously.
Whenever you start to get into January, in my experience, the weather's foul, people are in a foul mood, people are tired, having celebrated the holidays, and so it's. But at least I think that will give everyone opportunities to appear before the planning, have their case completely heard. So happy holidays to everyone, and to all a good night.
Thank you very much.
Okay,
Okay,
good
thank
night.
you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
We'll
Adjourn.
keep you updated. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.